Right. Go ahead and get started with our virtual workshop today from the Tools for Life Learning Center called How to Budget for Utility Bills. My name is Amanda Bollig, and I am the Home Repair and Learning Center Manager here at Loudoun Habitat for Humanity, which means I have the joy of overseeing our Tools for Life Learning Center. We have a lot of great information to cover today, so we are just going to dive right into things. But I first want to give you a couple of our discussion points so you know what to expect from our presentation today. So first, we're going to be talking about some energy efficiency tips that you could put into place as a homeowner or as a renter. We're also going to talk about some utility and billing basics, and then we'll wrap things up with some financial assistance programs that you could utilize should you ever fall into a place where that would be something that's necessary for you. Joining us today, we have two wonderful guests who are volunteering their time with us. They both are coming to us from Virginia Cooperative Extension, and Carolyn Riefel is an Energy Masters volunteer, and she's going to kind of kick things off for us today. And then also joining us is Aisha Salazar, who is a Family and Consumer Science Extension agent from the Alexandria office of Virginia Cooperative Extension. So we've got Carolyn as a volunteer and Aisha as staff, but they both have a lot of really great information to share with us. And if you don't know anything about the Energy Masters program, I'm sure both ladies will share a little bit more. But so you know, the program's been in existence since about 2011. It is award-winning, which is wonderful. And really, it's a program that trains volunteers, just like Carolyn, to go out and give some of these community education talks and to really promote a more energy efficient and sustainable community right here in Virginia. And that includes us here in Loudoun County. So we're really grateful to have both of them joining us today. And we want to get started with their presentation. But first, I want to let you know about the chat box and how to ask questions if you have any for Carolyn or for Aisha. So if you do have a question, you'll type that into the chat box, but we won't answer them until the end of the presentation. We'll have a dedicated question and answer time. So we'll let the ladies get through all of their content, and then we'll go ahead and answer any of the questions that you may have for them. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and pass it off to Carolyn, and she's going to get us started with our first slide on energy efficiency tips.
Okay, so these tips, there are 5 of them, and they are what I call the quick wins. They are things that you can easily do, or usually easily do. And the ultimate goal is that you are getting some control over your energy consumption, whether it be gas, electric, or water. And so when Aisha follows me, she will be looking at billing. And there's a direct connection. So let's look at the first one. So your thermostat. So do you know where the thermostat is in your apartment or house? Do you have control over it? And that would be the first thing you can do. Go check your thermostat, see what it's set at. The recommendation in the winter, and we are still in winter, is 68 degrees. If you're a little higher than that, try to slowly move down and maybe put on another layer of clothing. The other key here is when nobody's at home or when you're sleeping, reduce that by 7 to 10 degrees. And the research shows that that will save as much as 10% a year in your utility bills. Okay, next slide. Another thermostat type thing, something you can adjust, and this is your water heater. So again, the first question is, do you know where your water heater is? Because sometimes in apartments, it's not even in your apartment. So then you can't do much. And do you know what it's set at? You can see there's a whole range of dials up to 160 degrees, but don't keep it there. That's a real waste of consumption, whether it's electric, gas, using more water, etc. Set it at 120. And if you're concerned about whether that's hot enough. And we talk about that in terms of killing, not having bacteria or something in the water. You can take a meat thermometer and just put it in the hot water as it's coming from your tap and see that it hits 120. The other key here is when you are out on vacation or out of the house for a period of time, even a week could be worth it, then set it, turn the dial to a very low setting, and often they will say vacation. So that's what you put it at. One of the issues here is, where do they put these dials? Way at the bottom of the water heater. So sometimes getting there isn't so convenient, but it's really worth doing it. Okay, next slide. Next one is the light bulbs. So there are 3 types on the market: the traditional incandescent, which is really, really not, it doesn't last long. It consumes a ton of electricity. So the real recommendation is, when it burns out, and it probably won't last that long, do not replace it. It's very tempting. You go to the hardware store, it will be much cheaper, seems to be, than the LED. Go with the LED if there's any way you can, because long-term LED is the most cost-effective. Kind of in between is the compact fluorescent, which, if you have those, again, wait till they burn out. The issue there is, when they burn out, they have mercury. So you have to put them in hazardous waste, not in your regular garbage. And in some locations, the library will take it. Or I know in my case, I can go to my local Home Depot if I'm there. So that's the issue with the compact fluorescents. The LED, 25 times longer than an incandescent. It consumes a lot less energy. And check around, because some areas there are some programs where you can get a discount. And compared to 5 years ago, or when they first came out, they are a lot cheaper. Okay, next slide. Next tip is your vents. Again, be a detective. If you don't know where all your vents are, and sometimes they're different for heating and cooling, and sometimes they're the same. So first exercise for you to do is to go around and find all your vents. And then make sure that they aren't being blocked, that there's no furniture, curtains, etc. And especially in the summer, you have to keep them open because of moisture. But in general, they should be open so that your whole system can work together. And the other thing is to be sure that they don't have dust and debris. You can take a vacuum to them, etc. And I think we're on the last one, which is going to be your shades and curtains. So right now, sun is coming in our windows. The glass magnifies it. So if that's the case, then take advantage of that heat coming in and open up your shades or your curtains. In the summer, of course, it's the opposite. You would close the curtains to keep out the heat of the sun from coming in. And that is it. Those are all things that you can do when this is over, and just start being a detective and learning more about what's happening in your place of residence. And on to Aisha.
Thank you. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about billing basics. With your utility bills, it's important to try to understand how they work. And it really depends on where you live and what type of utilities you have. So if we go to the next slide, we can talk a little bit about the average energy cost by apartment size. This chart is from 2018, just to give you an example. So there is some more data out there now, but to give you a sense, the differences between electricity and natural gas, whether it's a studio to a 3-bedroom apartment. And you'll see that the price increases the larger the home that you live in is. So if you're in a 1-bedroom apartment versus a house, which isn't descriptive shown here, but if you're in a house, a 3-bedroom house, it's a lot larger or might have taller ceilings, you're going to pay a bit more. So just factor that in when you are looking at buying a home. And also when you pay rent, sometimes some of your utilities are included in your rent. So you don't always see how much your bills really cost or utilities cost until you actually move somewhere where you have to pay all your bills. So I'll give you an example. My sister used to live in a 2-bedroom condo. Her electricity, her water was all included. So, she might not have been as energy efficient or as conscientious about things. And when she moved to a home, that's when a house or a larger house, she realized, oh, okay, maybe I should have listened to some of those tips that Carolyn provided, what to do with the lights or what type of light bulbs to purchase. So just keep that in mind so that you can have a sense of what to pay. It also depends on the weather and the season at the time of year, how efficient your appliances are. If you have older appliances, they're not going to be as efficient. So you might be paying a bit more. Try to think of energy holistically as a combination of electricity and gas, because like we said, it depends on your sourcing. For heat, about 46% of US apartments use electricity, 40% use natural gas, and 4% use fuel oil, and 10% use another type of fuel source. For hot water, electricity also takes the large share. About 46% of US apartments are fueled by electricity for their water heaters. For cooking, about 64% of apartments nationwide use an electric oven or a stove, and 31% use natural gas. And then when it comes to air conditioning, whether it's a wall unit or central air, it's mostly fueled by electricity. So just know that you'll be paying more in electric costs for some of these appliances. And like I said, the general rule of thumb is that the larger your apartment is, the more your utilities will be, whether it's more square footage to heat or more residents using the power. So if you have more people living at home with you, you'll be paying larger bills. In Virginia, the average monthly residential bill is $135 for electricity. For gas, it's about $80. And then the average residential price for electricity consumption is about 12 cents per kilowatt. There is some new data that I just came across in terms of some of your bills. And I'll get to that a little bit later. I can provide that a little bit later on if needed. In our next slide, there's some information on how to read your electric bills. I'm not sure about you, but I know when I first started receiving electric bills, it's just kind of like, I don't know what all this information is. There's a lot of numbers, a lot of different things. And I just wanted to know, okay, well, what am I paying? Basically, what you'll have on your bill is on one side, and this is an example for Dominion Energy, you'll have your usage history, and that will kind of show you how much you use each month in general, and it'll give you within the past year. So this will allow you to kind of get a sense of, okay, how much did I spend last year? How much can I expect this following year? Of course, it varies because if you had a really cold winter in January one year versus January the other year, your temperature is going to fluctuate. And then, or I'm sorry, the temperature you set your thermostat to might fluctuate, although like Carolyn said, you don't want it to fluctuate too much, but the amount that you pay might vary. You might want to consider getting your heating and cooling system serviced before the summer and winter season, just to see if that will help you out. But the bill also shows the rate schedule that you're being considered for. It'll tell you your metered readings, and you might want to double check that. I know recently my dad has a gas service, a gas line, and their meter wasn't reading correctly. So you just want to make sure that that's being read correctly, and you can usually check that at home. And then it'll tell you how long your billing cycle is and how much you use. And this is also good to help you understand, like, okay, if you see a really large increase in your bills that shouldn't be there, you can try to, debate that with your utility company. Like I said before, your bills fluctuate with the seasons. And this next slide, we have an example of a 2-bedroom, 1-bath, just to give you a sense of, when temperatures, when you're going to pay for different things. So in this one, you can see the electricity went up in August, in September and October, whereas the gas went up in December, January, February. And if you can put in the chat, maybe you can kind of get a sense, what do you think you're paying for during in electricity? And then what do you think you're paying for in gas in December, January, February? Think of those expenses that you might be paying for. The next slide, just to give you a little sense of your water usage. The average monthly water bill in Virginia is about $36. And some water bills include sewer charges, depending on where you live. And then some water companies will bill monthly, others bill quarterly. So when you're building your budget, you think about how much, when you're paying what amount. And then this just gives you a sense on the right-hand side, a chart of how much water usage occurs on average. Our showers and our toilets take up the most amount of time. Laundry takes a little bit less, about 17%. And then the faucets. So it's really important to make sure that your toilets and your faucets aren't running, that maybe you're taking shorter showers, checking for any leaks. You see that's 12%. So just make sure that you are paying attention to that. And one thing is your dishwasher here, that uses a lot less. So if you're washing dishes by hand, you're actually using more water. So you might want to switch to a dishwasher if you have that capability to use that. So the next thing I'm going to talk to you about is some financial assistance programs. I believe there'll be a link being placed into the chat and will be sent out to you afterwards. But there, in general, there are, let me pull up my copy as well. There are bill assistance programs through the state of Virginia. And then there's also ones through the county, and some nonprofits or faith-based organizations provide assistance if you have trouble meeting your bills or paying your bills. And then utility companies themselves also have assistance programs. Always recommend, call and ask if you need help. It never hurts to ask. The worst I can say is no. But there's the main website, which has all the types of utility providers within Loudoun County. And then the main provider for water is Loudoun Water. And they, right now, because of the pandemic, they can establish payment plans for customers. And so you can call them and just ask. They also have some great information on their website on how to check for different leaks in your home and what you can do. There's some video footage in there as well, just so that you know what to do. If you're renting, I would say definitely talk to your landlord about that, because you don't want to try to fix the leak and then make it worse. For electricity, Dominion Power is the largest power provider. They have a couple different services that they can help you with. They have something called Energy Share, and that offers bill payment assistance, and they also provide energy efficiency upgrades to certain households. For the energy upgrades, it's called weatherization, where they can do an energy assessment, they can do upgrades. I believe those are based on age, but then also on income. So if you're an adult older than 60, then you can receive services. And then your bill payment, it's for anybody that has issues paying their heating or their cooling bills. The other thing that you can set up with this organization, with Dominion Power, but also several places, it's called, I think it's called bill paying. I might have the term wrong. There's a couple different terms for it, but the idea is that you can try to pay the same amount each month. So spread out your payments so that they're even each month. So that way you're not paying a lot more in December and then a lot less in let's say September. So you can spread out your bill payments so that they're even, and that way you can always know what you're paying each month. You're not going to have these fluctuations where let's say if you work an hourly job and you're making more one month versus less another month, you're always going to know that like, hey, I'm always going to pay $80 in my bills every month, and not be hit by like sticker shock, for example. Natural gas, I think the largest company is Columbia Gas of Virginia, and then there's Washington Gas. Both of them have assistance programs. Some of them are based on age or your income. And then Columbia Gas is something called WarmWise energy efficiency rebates. So if you upgrade to certain appliances, then you can get cash back for doing that. For the internet, and that's something that sometimes people don't always think of it as a common utility. There's what's called the Affordable Connectivity Program. And this is something through the federal government, and it's based on your household income and federal poverty guidelines and income levels. And then if you have a child, or if you already depend on things like Medicaid or WIC or SNAP or anything like that, there's a long list of programs, then you already qualify for these. You just need to provide the paperwork. And then there's also Lifeline benefit. Lifeline, I don't know if you're familiar with this, but Lifeline allows you to also lower your cost of your internet or your phone. You just have to provide proof and make sure your income is within 135% or below the federal poverty guideline. Back to the Affordable Connectivity Program, they usually give a discount of about $30 per month towards internet, and about $75 for anybody that's living on tribal lands. And then you can also get a one-time discount if you're purchasing like a laptop or a computer or something like that. But again, you have to qualify for that. And that is actually a result, I believe this is kind of a result of the pandemic. There's other broadband providers, Verizon has a lot of support that you can get from them as well, specific to the pandemic, and then also otherwise if you need assistance. There's also the energy assistance information for the whole state. There's 3 main programs that the state provides. And I don't recall if I put in all the dates for the crisis assistance one, but I put in the link through dss.virginia.gov. They do fuel assistance that offsets your fuel costs. And that's between October to the second Friday in November. Crisis assistance for heating emergencies. And you can get that. I think that one ends by March 15th or 16th, sometime next week. So if you do need assistance, you can go through them within the next week. And then there's also cooling assistance programs, and that's between June and August. And then there are also some programs for older adults, more specific to them. And then there's also weatherization assistance. So you can get assistance to make your house or your home more energy efficient. So they can change, look into your cooling and heating systems. They can look into some other services. And that's through an organization called Community Housing Partners. And it's one of our partners. And I included the information, the link to them in that document that's in the chat, but they can do a lot of work for you as well. And then Common Help, that's the main website for any assistance or screening tools or anything like that. You can always go to a social worker as well, and they can provide you information on any of these resources. But just know that there's always some help out there if you do need help with anything. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. I can look into things some more if I can't find the answers always. It is a little tricky, I will say this, to find some of these informations right away on the websites. So that's why I try to give you the most up-to-date information that I could find, because sometimes you do have to search around a little bit. So these links should take you directly to the financial assistance programs. I think that's all I had on the assistance programs. So I will turn it over back to Amanda.
Thank you both for that wonderful presentation. We do have up on the website, on the screen right now for you, some of the contact information for the Energy Masters program. So if you're interested in learning more about that, or if you have some follow-up questions that maybe we don't have time to answer today, you can certainly go out and email either of our presenters or go onto the website and get some more information about that. So we just put that in the chat box for you. And I also did want to mention that this workshop was recorded. So you can always go back and rewatch the information if you want to remind yourself of Carolyn's great tips or some of the energy saving things that we learned. You can go back and rewatch the workshop. We will also send out to everybody who viewed the workshop today a copy of the slides. So you can go back and maybe write some notes on it and have that documentation for you. And then we'll also send out that PDF link that was in the chat box just a minute or so ago with all of those financial assistance programs. So you'll get that email to you as well today. So you'll be able to have that on file just in case you ever may fall into a circumstance where you need some extra assistance or some extra help. So with that, we're going to go ahead and kind of wrap things up today. So I just want to give us the 3 key points on what we learned today. So today we talked about some of the tips to help you heat and cool your home or apartment more efficiently. We learned how to read and understand your utility bills. And then we talked about some of those local programs that are available here in Loudoun and also kind of statewide to help you should you ever need assistance with heating and cooling your home. So now we're going to go ahead and jump into our question and answer time. So if you have questions for either of our presenters, go ahead and throw them in the chat box now. But I actually had a question as you guys were speaking. Something popped in my head and I wanted to ask. You talked about on the utility bills that it's important to go out and check your meter and make sure that what's on your bill is matching up with what's on your meter. If someone doesn't know where their meter is or how to read it, what would be your suggestion on that?
That's actually a great question. And I was actually going to look that up because I'm not 100% sure. I know mine is very visible, like my water meter is at least. Not every, if you live in an apartment and say you rent, you're not going to always have access to that. But if you do have a home, it's usually in the basement, and it's usually like the electric one is outside. Usually the water one is indoors, and so you should be able to access that. You can always call your company too, or on the utility bill, and just double check and have them guide you through it.
It's a great thing to put into practice is to check if you can every time you get that bill. And then if you're unsure of the amount, call your electric company and have them walk you through it. Just like she said, it's a really great thing to put into practice. A couple other questions that we have. If you are looking to go from renting to owning a home, what would be your suggestion on starting to prepare for that increase in potential utility bills? If I'm used to paying for a 2-bedroom apartment, but I know I might be purchasing a 3-bedroom townhouse, what might I do to start prepare for that increase in utility bills?
Yeah, that's a great question. You can try to look at, if you have access to your current bills and say you're moving from a 2-bedroom apartment to maybe a 2-bedroom townhouse, you can kind of get a sense there in terms of how much you're going to be spending. I think I'll try to send you a link a little bit later, Amanda, that maybe you can send out to people that have, there's a recent article just written, I think this week, on like some more information about that. But you can always talk to a real estate agent when you're looking to buy. Ask for a list of past expenses within the past year in terms of like, what's the average utility cost and utility bills, who are the internet or whatever providers. Because that'll give you a sense of what to expect. You can always ask about the windows too, and then about the energy efficiency, the appliances that you're having. And I think Carolyn has a follow-up to this, but aside from that, look at the appliances and see how new they are. I know when I was purchasing home, I looked, there's dated, so you can get a sense of how recent they are. And then you can, I think there's one other thing I was going to say related to this, and I can't think of it right now, so I'm going to pass it to Carolyn and then think some more.
Okay, this is what I have learned as being a volunteer with Energy Masters. And the first thing is it gives you much more confidence, and it also makes you a detective. So if you are going into a place you're buying, find the leaks, because the gaps that are behind the drywall or behind a cupboard. And of course, if you don't need any work done, then that's okay. But I missed opportunities even when I got a new roof put on recently. Well, before I knew more about weatherizing. So one way you can find out, and then I'll be quiet, your library may check out thermal cameras and a thing called a kilowatt. So with the thermal camera, it fits to your device, your smartphone, Android or iPhone, and you can go around and actually find places that you can't see because they're behind a wall or a ceiling that may be a major opening. That is going to really, really impact what your utility bills are.
That is so helpful. I didn't even know that that was something you could possibly do, because
I know. And so now next time I do this, that's going to go in there. And it's just fun. I mean, it's intimidating and it's like, oh, I don't know what I'm doing. Get a friend, talk it through. But the libraries often will have these on loan.
Oh, that's wonderful.
So.
Yeah, that's really good advice from Carolyn. The other thing I would say, there's a report that said that you can expect to add 25% to your monthly housing expenses when you add up electricity, natural gas, water, or sewage. And then monthly utility bills tend to cost 7% of your average wage or average wages. And then I think in the presentation, we gave you kind of a sense of, for Virginia, what to expect. But if you're moving to a different state that's colder, it's going to be a lot more different. And then the other thing, another tip was maybe call like internet. That's an easy one. You usually have a sense of how much that's going to cost. And then for sewage, like I know an unexpected fee that I think about was you can pay for insurance to cover your pipes as they go to the street. So that's additional insurance that you might not have thought to purchase, but you're better safe than sorry to pay that rather than having something occur and then having to pay a lot more. The issue with some of those insurances, though, is that the company that you don't have a choice in who comes out and fixes the problem. So there is that, issue. But definitely talk to your a real estate agent or the landlord of the organization or the apartment complex and the previous tenant if you have access to them.
Yeah, that's great information. It looks like that's all the questions we had in the chat box. So we're going to go ahead and wrap things up for today. I want to thank you all for joining us, our guest presenters, as well as our attendees. If you're interested in learning more about the Tools for Life Learning Center or Loudoun Habitat for Humanity, you can check out our website, which is up on the screen right now, loudounhabitat.org/toolsforlife. This workshop is recorded and will be added to our website next week. And you can go back and watch all of our other recorded workshops as well if you're interested in learning more about homeownership or money management or anything like that. We will have another workshop in April. It's going to be April 7th. And this time we're going to be partnering with Cornerstones, and they're going to be teaching on how to budget as a new homeowner. So for those of us who are just purchasing our first home or are not sure how to expect to adjust our monthly spending plan, Martin Rios from Cornerstones is going to be here, and he's going to be providing you some information on that, so you won't want to miss it. That is all that we have for today. So again, thank you for joining us, and we hope you have a wonderful rest of your Thursday.